Mistaken identity, the federal officer, the diagram, and the accusation of Rusty Martin. The transition from ordinary bankroom irritation to full-blown mistaken identity farce arrives with the quiet authority of a federal officer seeking approval for an out-of-state check. In the carefully ordered world, Mr. Mooney strives to maintain such a request as routine, almost mundane, yet it becomes the spark that ignites one of the most delightful identity confusions in the entire composite narrative. Lucille Ball's Lucy Carmichael approaches the situation with the professional courtesy that occasionally surfaces beneath her scheming exterior. She accepts the identification, notes the Washington, D.C. origin, and processes the transaction with the brisk efficiency of a woman who, for all her chaos, genuinely wishes to serve the bank's customers well. The officer's casual remark that he might do the bank a service in return, mentioning the circulation of counterfeit $50 that look so much better than the ones we're putting out, draws a polite laugh and a quick exit. The line is a small gem of period satire, gently needling the government's own coinage while establishing the officer's easy confidence. Ball's reaction is understated, a slight widening of the eyes, a polite nod. The briefest flicker of amusement that never quite becomes full laughter. It is the kind of controlled physical response that only a performer of her experience could make register so clearly on camera without overplaying the moment. Then comes the first true comic pivot. The officer pauses, studies Lucy's face, and asks whether they have not met somewhere before. Lucy's denial is immediate and sincere. "Oh, I don't think so." No, delivered with the slight upward inflection that Ball always used when her character was trying to be both polite and slightly defensive. The officer persists. He is positive. He would certainly have remembered her. The exchange is brief. Yet it carries the unmistakable rhythm of classic situation comedy recognition scenes, the slow dawning of suspicion on one side, the growing unease on the other. Ball's face becomes a study in controlled panic mixed with genuine bafflement. The audience, of course, already senses that something larger is about to unfold. The arrival of the second officer, addressed simply as Lane and then Chief, accelerates the comedy into higher gear. The discovery is announced with the triumphant tone of a detective who believes he has just solved a major case. "Look what I found, Rusty Martin." The name is repeated with increasing satisfaction, each utterance tightening the net around the bewildered secretary. Big Nick is due out of jail the following day, and already his girl is working inside a bank. The conclusion seems obvious to the officers: she must be setting up another bank job. The accusation lands with the full weight of official authority, and Lucy's response is pure Carmichael indignation wrapped in Ball's inimitable vocal music. "I am not Rusty," she insists, the words tumbling out with rising pitch and tempo. When the officers produce the diagram she had so proudly drawn only minutes earlier, the same diagram showing the employees exit the back entrance, and the stairs leading directly to the vault, the visual evidence appears damning. Lucy's explanation that she merely wished to show Mr. Mooney where to place the Apple machine is met with the skeptical dismissal that every classic sitcom heroine receives when her perfectly logical to her scheme collides with external suspicion. "Ah, come on, Rusty, you can do better than that." What follows is a masterfully constructed sequence of escalating protest and bureaucratic misunderstanding. Lucy appeals to Mr. Mooney, begging him to confirm her identity. The threat of 10 years in prison is voiced, and Ball's reaction, eyes widening, voice climbing into that famous high register, transforms a simple legal warning into pure physical comedy. 10 years. 10 lovely years, she echoes. The second iteration dripping with the terrified sarcasm that only she could make simultaneously funny and oddly poignant. Mooney, summoned into the scene, provides the expected defense. She is telling the truth. She is Mrs. Carmichael. He has known her for years. They were even neighbors back in Danville. The geographical detail is a small but telling piece of character continuity, grounding Lucy in a specific, ordinary American past, even as the present threatens to rewrite her as a gangster's mole. Yet the officers are not so easily persuaded. The dual identity theory emerges with the smooth logic of men trained to see conspiracy everywhere. Perhaps she is Mrs. Carmichael by day, but at night when she works at the Club Domino, her real name is Rusty Martin. The suggestion is both absurd and strangely plausible within the heightened reality of the show. Ball's physical response is exquisite. The slight recoil of the shoulders, the open-mouthed stare, the hands that flutter briefly as if to ward off the very idea, all of it communicates a woman who cannot quite believe the speed with which her ordinary morning has transformed into a federal investigation. When the officers finally offer a grudging apology, the moment of relief is short-lived. One of them observes that she certainly had him fooled, he could have sworn she was Rusty. The line is delivered with residual suspicion rather than full conviction, keeping the tension alive even as formal accusations recede. The true comic brilliance of the sequence lies in the way it reframes Lucy's earlier diagram. What began as a harmless, slightly eccentric proposal for employee wellness is suddenly reinterpreted as the blueprint for a bank robbery. The visual prop itself becomes a character in the scene, passed from hand to hand, examined and cited as evidence. Ball's performance around the diagram is a study in shifting emotional registers: pride when she first presents it to Mooney, confusion when it is seized, mounting panic as its implications expand, and finally, a kind of desperate clarity as she tries to reclaim the narrative. Gordon's Mooney, for his part, occupies the uncomfortable middle ground of the man who knows the truth yet cannot fully control how that truth is received by outsiders. His confirmation of Lucy's identity is firm, but the officer's lingering doubts leave him looking slightly less authoritative than he would prefer, another small victory for the forces of comic disorder that Lucy so reliably unleashes. Culturally, the scene sits comfortably within the mid-1960s fascination with crime dramas and federal investigators that permeated both serious and comic television. The presence of officers from Washington, the casual mention of counterfeit currency, the ready assumption of underworld connections, all of it reflects a popular imagination still shaped by decades of gangster films and the more recent rise of television procedurals. Yet, the Lucy Show transforms these elements into pure farce. The threat of 10 years' imprisonment is never truly frightening. It is simply another obstacle for Lucy to navigate, with her characteristic mixture of protest, explanation and eventual reluctant cooperation. The Club Domino reference introduces a hint of nightlife glamour and moral ambiguity that will be explored more fully in subsequent segments. But within this scene, it functions primarily as a comic complication. A second identity that the officers can project onto the thoroughly respectable if chronically chaotic bank secretary. Ball's vocal work throughout the sequence deserves particular attention. The repeated insistence, "I am not Rusty, I am Lucille Carmichael," is delivered with variations in pitch, speed and intensity that map the character's rising distress. When she turns to Mooney with the almost childlike plea, "Will you please tell them that I'm Lucille Carmichael?" the vulnerability is genuine even as the situation remains absurd. Gordon's replies are measured, slightly flustered. The voice of a man who understands that his secretary's latest predicament is once again about to demand more of him than ordinary bank management should require. The supporting officers, though necessarily more functional in their roles, provide the perfect foil: confident, slightly condescending, and ultimately willing to pivot from accusation to opportunity once the full comic potential of the resemblance becomes clear. By the time the officers begin to reconsider their position, apologizing yet still half convinced that the woman before them could successfully impersonate the real Rusty Martin, the foundation has been laid for the larger scheme that will dominate the next phase of the narrative. The diagram remains on the table, both literally and figuratively, a reminder that Lucy's well-intentioned ideas can take on lives of their own once they enter the public sphere. The federal officers' responsentapes. The federal officers' responsentapes, initially figures of institutional threat, have been transformed into potential collaborators. And Lucy herself, though still protesting her innocence, has already begun the subtle shift from victim of mistaken identity to active participant in a new and more elaborate performance. The scene closes on a note of unresolved tension that is pure classic sitcom craftsmanship. The immediate danger has passed. The apology has been offered, yet the larger comic machinery has only just begun to turn. In the hands of Lucille Ball and Gail Gordon, what might have been a simple case of misidentification becomes a richly textured exploration of identity, authority, and the delightful instability that occurs whenever ordinary life collides with the heightened logic of farce. The bank once again has proven itself less a fortress of fiscal order than a stage upon which Lucy Carmichael's particular genius for transforming the mundane into the magnificently ridiculous can fully express itself.